Hey everyone, welcome back. It's been a while since I posted a card. I recorded this in May and it just took kind of forever to edit. I'm using Concord and Ninth today, and I'm using a little bit of old stuff and new stuff. I'm excited to see what you guys think. I think it turned out really well. I hope you enjoy it. Let's get started. This is a new addition to my collection. It's the honeycomb quilt top dies from Concord and Ninth, and it's got this really large front die here and then the additional pieces. So many options with this, but I just immediately think of springtime and bumblebee. So I was looking through my stuff and I've got this that I've created with before on the channel last year sometime. It's called Sweet Bees, and I've got the die, stencil, and then this coordinating stamps with it. So I'm going to bring in 80-pound cardstock here. And I'm using this as a reference. So what I want to do is use the stencils to create some flowers and then the greenery. And then we're going to use the die cuts to cut it out and use to kind of create a scene around the honeycomb die here. So let me look through these. There's 6 in here. And since I'm not creating a pattern paper, if you will, since I'm not creating this scene here, I just need to kind of look through and see what flowers I want to use, basically. So I definitely want to use these 2 flowers here, these larger flowers, and then we've got some smaller ones, and then the center details as well. So let's start off with this one. Bringing in my brushes, and I've got this low tack mint tape from scrapbook.com. What I want to do first is let's use different tape for this. I want to tape down my panel so this doesn't shift. I'm going to tape it on the top and the bottom. Okay, and then this is the stencil here. So now we need to secure the stencil so this doesn't shift. And honestly, I probably should just be using my washi tape for all of this so I can save this. So I'm going to set this aside so I don't use that too much. Okay, so for these flowers here, let's bring in watermelon. Just adding a little swatch there. And maybe 1 in watermelon and 1 in Aqua Sky. So we can really bring in some color on this card. And I've just got a paper towel here. I'm going to make sure I don't have any excess ink on this brush. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the Aqua Sky here, just dabbing my brush in that ink. And then I'm going to start more on the stencil so it doesn't come in too heavy or blotchy. And then I'm just going to ink blend all over. And then we'll kind of play with shading to see how dark we want to go. I don't want it too dark because it's a summer card, but we can go a little darker than this right here. This is really, really light. Okay, so I think that that has enough color to it. So now let's bring in watermelon and do the same thing. Kind of come in with a soft hand, small circular motions here. And if I color into this, that doesn't matter because we're going to die cut this out. So be sure to check the description box below. I will try to remember to link this card build from last year using the Sweet Bee stencils. It was really cute and very different from this card. I know that y'all will like it. It's one of my favorite cards that I've ever made. All right. So we've got 2 flowers there, and let me think. I'm wondering if I should just go ahead and color a couple more just for good measure, or let's bring in the center here. Let's just go ahead and darken up the center piece. So we're going to use a tone on tone, but just add quite a bit of ink here to give it some contrast. So you can really differentiate between the flower petals in the center of the flower. All right, so let's see if that is dark enough. Oh yeah, I love how that looks. Okay, so let's move this out of the way and let's bring in some smaller flowers. And now let's bring in Creamsicle. All right, so I'm just gonna repeat the process. I think for this flower here, maybe we'll bring in Buttercup. Maybe we'll have a yellow flower come in. This Creamsicle is very light, so I'm just building it up a little bit here. And lastly, we've got Buttercup. And I am going to use this little flower here too. I'm filling that in with the Buttercup as well. And let's check those out. And then I'll bring in the next stencil and then we will fill in the centers for those as well. All right, so let's start to cut out what we've ink blended. And we've definitely got the larger flowers there. And then the greenery. And this little flower there. I know that we're going to incorporate the bumblebee as well, but let's get this cut out and kind of see. All right. So let's see how these look. I love it. I love the softness of the ink blending without having like the stamped outline. That one's kind of misaligned a little bit, but I think it'll be okay. And I love the white outer edge there. Okay, so we've got all of the ink blending pieces cut out and I'm loving them. I'm loving the color scheme for sure. I'm going to bring in my Spellbinders magnet real quick and magnetize these down so they don't get lost. And now let's bring in our card base here. It is already scored and it is measuring at 8.5 by 5.5. And it is scored in the middle here. Okay. So we've got that crease there because I want the card to open up like this. And we are going to make an arched card base. So let me bring out my arches. And these are from Amazon. I've used them on the channel so many times and I love them. They were a very inexpensive add to the collection of card supplies. So what I'm going to do is, if you've never done this before, you create your card base and create your crease and then line up your die on your panel here, and the only part of your die that's going to hang off is going to be on the creased side, because you obviously don't want to cut the crease, you want to keep the crease so it opens. So that is the hang off there. And what I need to do is I'm going to bring in my magic mat and make sure that this is aligned, and I need to tape this down. Now, we've got our card base here. Oh, and I didn't run it through twice. Let me make sure that cut all the way through. It did not. Okay. This is 110 pound cardstock, and I forgot. I need to run this through a couple of times just to make sure that the die is going through both layers of that 110 pound cardstock, because we've got it folded in half. So let's go over this one more time. I'm going to do a run through and then I'm going to come back through. Okay, so I had to get my other plates that aren't as warped so this could actually have the pressure it needed to cut through both layers there. Uh-oh, my paper snagged just a bit, but very, very minor. You can hardly see it. So I think that that's going to be okay. So now we have our card base, an arched card base, and it's got the crease, which is just what we need. So I'm going to set that aside so it doesn't get damaged. Now we need to work on our panel. So I'm going to bring in an 80-pound cardstock here, and I want to create a window for this to peek through, essentially, and then have the floral around it. So what I need to do is just a little bit more die cutting here. Okay, so I'm going to take this panel die or card front die, and the pattern needs to go directly on the paper. So I'm lining that within that die. It is a perfect A2 size, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So let me grab some washi tape here, and once again line up our panel, and I'm just going to tape it on both sides like that. Alrighty, and then run it through my spell binders. That is so pretty. Let's turn it over. Oh yes, that is so nice. So crisp. My goodness, that is a nice, nice card front die. Alright, so let's get that placed back in position there. And now let's bring in our arches again, because now we need to focus on our panel and our card base as a size reference as well. I think I want to create a raised border that will align perfectly with the card, and then this can be within the border, and then our flowers can kind of go around in some way. I think that that is going to be great. So do I want this border to be white, or do I want to bring in a color? I'm thinking yellow because of the honeycomb. I could also do some ink blending on this to give this some color, but that might be too much. Might be too much. Okay, let's cut it out in white, and if I like it, then I can test out another color. So what I'm doing is grabbing 2 of these dies here, and those are too close together. So let's see here, because what I want to do is cut this part out. So that's why I'm using 2 dies. So it's just going to cut this outer portion out to create that arched border. So what I want to do is secure this one down into place, and then place this one. And I've got to be attentive of this placement to make sure that this is going to be even on all sides. And I'm going to place the tape on the inside here, because this little inside part we don't need. Or I guess I could have used this little cut piece actually for this part. That would have saved paper, but that's okay. So once again, I'm going to place this down on my cutting plate and put a paper over it to protect it from the cutting plate itself. And I'm going to run this through my spell binders again. Alright, so what we've got, oh well, that's a little too narrow. I wanted it to be a little bigger, but that's okay. Got a little washi tape on there. Let's see. And then this behind it. Let's cut this down as well. This is the die here. So same process, I'm just going to secure this and run this through our spell binders. I want to make sure that the honeycombs are straight because there's those stitching throughout. You'll be able to tell if things were crooked. So making sure that that was straight as well. So with everything aligned, this is how it looks. It's a lot of white on white. So I'm thinking about bringing in some color besides the flowers, but let's just kind of play with this and see. Because we could bring in some gold for a sentiment. That would definitely brighten this card up a bit more. I'm just kind of placing these down. I'm not quite sure on what look that I'm trying to achieve. I don't have a vision here. I'm just filling in the space. Okay, so maybe something like that, and then some gold. And I don't want to forget about the bumblebees either. I think that I'll just have this kind of, let's just set this over to the side as so, and kind of ponder on that, and then figure out the bee situation. We need to get that stamped out, so I need to grab my mini Misty and some Memento Tuxedo Black ink. Alright, so bringing in my mini Misty here to stamp out this bee. I'm going to stamp it out a couple times. And there's 2 different bees here. And it does come with wings and 2 different dies. And oh, and I want to cut that out. Well, I can't incorporate the stitching here because I've already got all this done. We'll see. We'll see. Anyways, so you can do whatever you want. I personally like the build up of the bee and incorporating the wings just to kind of add more of a dimensional look. Sticking to the dies there. Okay, so I've got 80-pound cardstock, and let's grab our bee. And like I said, we'll just stamp it out a couple times. And I've got a alcohol marker. This is a tri-blend 3-in-1. That's going to be the yellow that we use to color in the white space. And I've used this stamp before a year ago, so everything should be good to go. And I'm definitely going to have to do another layer there to just really darken that up, making sure my panel didn't shift. Oh yeah. There we go. Stark, stark black. Okay, so I am just going to do this a couple more times. I'll probably stamp 3 bees out. All right, we've got 3 little bees. Let me put the lid on our ink there. And I'm going to let this dry before I apply the yellow alcohol marker because it will smear together and the yellow won't be as vibrant. So I want that ink to dry. And we need to cut out some wings. And let me grab this just in case so I don't forget it. And I think this is the die for the little bee there. So I'm bringing in the citrus blend, and let's just go with the mid-tone here. And just coloring in that white space. Super simple. So we are good there. And now I need to cut each one out. Just like so. So I'm definitely going to have to use some tape here. And trim this down so it'll fit on my little plates. Alright, so now I'm going to run this through and just get all 3 of them cut out. Alright, so for the next part, I'm going to zoom in so we can have a better look here. And I cut the wings out and the glitter and then the shimmer, and I didn't like it, so I actually went back and found a picture of my card, and I used white wings, and I'm going to do the same thing again. So I'm going to bring in my liquid glue here and just add a little bit to this white, the white area. And then bring in my wax tool and glue these down, making sure they're the right direction. So we've got our 3 little bees there. And then this element goes with the bees. And I can run this through again. I was thinking about it. Since it's stitched and it's not embossed, I can run this through again and it shouldn't mess with the integrity of the stitching. But if I wanted to incorporate this and then the bumblebee, I think I'll do that. I think that will be a nice touch. But first, let's go ahead and build this up. This is the panel portion, and I'm taking some really thin foam tape that I got from Dollar Tree. It comes in a 3-pack with 3 different sizes, so this is the thinner of the 3. And it works great for projects like this because it is thin enough to still be able to be manipulated and curve along this archway. Alrighty, and then taking my non-stick scissors here and trimming that off. And now we've got that ready to go. Let's move all these pieces over. I'm going to open up our card base here and let's get that fixed in position. So what I think I'm going to do is place this down and make this permanent. And make sure it's aligned the best that I can. Alrighty, so we've just got a thin margin on the outside of that panel. And I love this technique. This is the 3rd time that I've created some sort of window with this arch set that I've found from Amazon. Okay, so just placing that there for right now. So how I had the flowers before I like. It was a little heavy up top, but I still need to consider a sentiment. If I applied the sentiment down at the bottom, it would definitely balance out the front of the card. All right, so I like that placement there. What I'm trying to do is just make sure that I have this placement so then I can bring in this little die here to create the little buzz for the bees. So then I can make this permanent and then glue everything else down. Let's try more greenery down at the bottom this time. Raising that up to make sure it's not hanging over too much. So the card will be able to sit up. So I am liking how that is looking. And then let's have maybe a bee coming in. Maybe a bee coming in right there. And let's see if we can incorporate another one. Maybe right there. I don't know, I applied the 3rd one there. Maybe it's too much. Maybe move that one down a bit so it's kind of hiding. Okay, so what about the sentiment? So I pulled the short and sweet dies from Concord and 9th, and I think I'm going to use one of these shorter ones and just incorporate it somewhere instead of stamping this out and fussy cutting it. And I like the placement of this, so I need to take a picture. Okay, so I took a picture of the placement. What I want to do is pick this panel up here, so I'm going to have to move this stuff out of the way. Okay, and I'm going to bring in my cutting plates, and what I want to do is just apply this. Let's maybe twist it this way. Yeah, I think that that is a good spot. Let's run it through and see how this looks. I think it's going to be cute. Oh, it's pink, kind of. That's odd. Oh, I guess because of my paper, all the paper on my cutting plate kind of came through. But that's okay. That is really pink, actually. Maybe I can place the bee kind of over top that to hide that. Yeah, I think that's what we'll do. All right, so now I gotta pick this one back up. Okay, so let's go ahead and glue this down. So I'm just going to place glue directly on the card base here. Okay, and then for the floral and stuff, I think I want to elevate some of it, so I need to bring in some foam dots as well. So I've got some of these from Hobby Lobby, and let's get this placed back down. Okay, so I need some of these little pop dots right here to elevate this part of the flower so it doesn't get bent, because it needs that elevation. And I think we can go ahead and glue this piece down, making sure that it's not overhanging at the bottom, because this is the base of the card. And now let me remove the backer to this flower here, and then I'll apply glue on the other portion of it. And nestle that into place. This actually, let me pick this up. These foam dots are too thick. They are thicker than the foam strips that I'm using, so I need to get something else. Okay, so I pulled the greenery out a little bit more, and I think I like that position a bit more. So I'm going to add some glue right here and make that permanent, and then add some glue to this flower as well. I need to get my tweezers. There we go. And once again, I'm going to apply some of these foam dots underneath part of that yellow flower, because it's just hanging right now, or floating, and it will get bent. So I'm just going to use my poker tool here and lift this up. And I'm just going to press that down to make sure that it's glued. And I think everything is. And so now we can make our little bee permanent as well. And I think we should add a pop dot to him. And we'll add these thicker ones here, because he's going to be set in this frame. We'll give him a thicker one. Oh, I'm so excited. This is so cute. So sweet and interactive with that dimension there for the top part. We have 3 flowers here. And I may need to look at my picture on my phone to see how I had this. And I love the interaction with the hive. It is just perfect. So fitting. And I'm using old supplies and new supplies. Okay, and just enforcing that. And we are good to go. We just need to cut out our sentiment and then add some embellishments, because it definitely needs some sparkle. I am thinking of congrats or just a simple hello. So I've got some gold cardstock here, and I think I'm just going to go with the hello and not the shadow layer. And let's get this cut out. And I also pulled some, resuction this to my glass mat there. I pulled some Aurora Opalescent, I believe that's what it's called, from Spellbinders, those discs. And I really like them because they kind of take on whatever color is near. You know, you primarily see pink right now, but once it gets around the other colors, it definitely changes shade. All right, so popping out those little centers there, and it's so fine and dainty. So I'm going to glue this directly to that panel there. And now for some sequin discs. All right, so I'm going to zoom in a bit more so y'all can see, and I think I'm just going to make the disc interact with the flowers here, I think that that's probably the best bet. And then we'll just glue the hello right there. Now I will use my tweezers here, but you can see it in this position. And then this is kind of more centered, and then maybe more up towards the top. So it's really just personal preference. So let's set that to the side and glue these sequins down real quick. And like I said, they kind of take on the color that they're around. So this pink one brings out the pink, and this yellow brings out more yellow, and so on and so forth. I really love these sequin discs. And I just ordered them from spellbinders.com. I like to look at scrapbook.com first because usually they have got discounts and offer a free gift with purchase. So I try to look there first, but sometimes I just have to go straight to the source. And I am loving those sequins. And there we have another card. See the dimension there? And I love those little bees. And remember, we added that little detail of the bee as well. And it's an arched card. I love it, guys. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching as always. And I'll see you in the next card or craft. Bye, guys.